Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Welcome all members and everyone in the gallery with us this evening and everyone joining us via the live stream. We're glad everybody's with us. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Councillor Stack has that this evening.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewa of Saugeen and the Chippewa of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for their contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We acknowledge to, we commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. So the third item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. No additions, deletions, or amendments. So we're on to adoption of minutes, and we have a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meetings of February 18th and February 24th, 2025 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Stack. Any questions or comments to those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. All right, so that moves us down to delegations, and we have two items under the delegations. One is a presentation and the other is a delegation, and we'll start with the presentation. It is our honor this evening to have Laura Robinson here with respect to having received the King Charles III Coronation Medal. Laura Robinson is a Saugeen Shores resident and member of the Canadian Federation of University Women, Southport Branch. She received the prestigious King Charles III Coronation Medal on February 19th, 2025. The medal honors individuals who have made a significant impact on Canadian society or brought international recognition to the country. Laura was nominated by Senator Mary Lou McPhedran for her work in August of 2021 when she assisted female athletes with fleeing Afghanistan who were at high risk when the Taliban took over. In August of 2021, Laura was part of a team organized by Senator McPhedran that helped to evacuate female Afghan athletes who were at high risk when the Taliban took over Kabul. Laura worked with FIFA, Human Rights Watch, and other groups nationally and internationally to find possible routes to freedom. As a result, several Afghan women and their families have been resettled in Canada and other countries. And as noted, Laura has already received her King Charles III Coronation Medal, but we are honored to have her here this evening to present her with a certificate of recognition on behalf of the town of Saugeen Shores and to thank her for the incredible work that she did helping those Afghan women. So Laura, if you'd come up, how about a round of applause for Laura?
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau, and I would like to thank you actually, who was very generous during that time period when we had a number of refugee families staying here, and you opened your heart and your door and always gave as much food as anyone needed. It was the harvest season, and that was really very special for people. I'd also like to thank Councillor Cheryl Grace, even though she's not here, and her partner Mike, because they immediately stepped up to the plate. All of a sudden, I'm asking them if they can go to quarantine hotels near the airport and pick up Afghan refugees, because I really felt that they needed to have the wonderful healing feeling that comes from Lake Huron and the beach and generally this community. They'd been through immense trauma, and this was a place that I knew they could start to heal in. And so sure enough, Cheryl and Mike get down to Toronto along with a number of other people. after the 2 weeks quarantine and brought a number of families up, and wonderful, generous people gave their cottages and added money and food and help. And Cheryl and also Margaret Whitley. I mean, if you've ever tried to fill out a Canadian federal form and English isn't your first language, they were so helped by Cheryl and Margaret and the amount of forms that they were filling out. And I have to say that a quick email went out, one through the CFUW and another through the Southampton Residents Association. And we had just an immense show of love. And one of the CFUW members told me once that love is action. And that's what we saw, you know, in a world where there's way too much hate. We saw this wonderful love here. I really appreciate the people coming out because so many of them helped us. And I'd like to say that the president at the time of the SRA is now grandfather to two of our young women, Shema and Salsala. That's what they call Bill Bowden. And Shema's about to, in the fall, start a master's degree in immigration and diaspora studies at Carleton, full scholarship. She came as not just a soccer player, but as a lawyer. Almost all the women were also lawyers who had prosecuted the Taliban. The Taliban knew what they looked like, and we had to get them out. Salsala now has a scholarship with the Canadian Association of Journalists, and she's an intern now as a journalist. We got her sister Rangina and her other three sisters out a couple years later. Her sister Rangina was a OBGYN doctor who advocated for birth control. So she was also on this death list that another person who absolutely had to be removed. So I can't thank all the good people of this community enough. The CFUW, including a lot of other CFUWs, I made cold calls right across Canada, and I just said, well, I've got these women athletes coming like tomorrow to your community. Do you think you could meet them at the airport? And they all stepped up. And we have, I know the daughter of one of the women, she worked for Right to Play. You may know that organization. It's a huge NGO out of Canada. She worked for them out in the very conservative provinces. Another person we had to get out. And her daughter, Arifa, is in her second year at Centennial College. She's doing aeronautical engineering. And I said, why did you choose aeronautical engineering? And she said, because I'm going to be an astronaut. She's getting straight A's. So it's a giant plus for Canada that we have these wonderful human beings with us. As of today, I'm still working. There's 240 women, and courtesy of Elon Musk and his cuts to USAID, their scholarships right now have ended immediately in the Middle East, and they are going to be sent back to Afghanistan very shortly if there isn't an international intervention. So we're working on that right now and just praying, really, that something can be done. So again, thank you for this honor, and to all the good hearts and open doors from Saugeen Shores.
Well, thank you for those words, Laura, and congratulations once again, much deserved. Okay, so now we're going to go on to 8.2, which is our delegation, and it is from Ryan Hennessy, and he's here to speak to us about services to 560 Waterloo Street. Mr. Hennessy, you have 10 minutes, sir, so whenever you're ready. Make sure you speak into the microphone too there, yeah. So you can...
That's definitely tough to follow up with. Clearly not nearly as noble as her, but thanks a lot for the opportunity. My name is Ryan Hennessy, and I'm the owner of 560 Waterloo Street in Port Elgin. I'd like to start by.
Mr. Hennessy, would you just move your microphone just a little bit closer? Sorry about that, this, so they can hear you online.
Sorry, is that better?
Yep, thank you.
Over the past 6 months, I've been in contact with both the municipality and the county for a renovation that I'm wishing to do to my property. I'm hoping that if approved, I'll be able to convert my home into a duplex, providing additional rental space to help curb the vacancy rate of the area. I plan to renovate the home into a tasteful duplex, providing affordable housing for this area. I previously built my own home on the other half of this lot that required a severance zoning bylaw amendment that I retained back in 2022. I believe if you haven't all seen a copy of this, the reference number is Z 2021-081. At the time, the zoning setback was approved to suit the current dwelling that was built back in the 1800s. A backyard setback of 6.5 meters was approved. Due to a clerical error during the application process, the survey ended up showing up that the house was actually 6.08 meters. I'm not trying to blame anyone for this, as it was definitely my oversight that the 6.5 meter was clearly laid out on the bylaw amendment when the survey actually showed 6.08 meters. Where this became an issue is when I applied for my current renovation permit. It came to light that the current setback was 6.08 and not the 6.50 that was approved. This is a difference of 16 inches. Even though there were several emails back and forth before my formal submission, it was not noticed by myself, the county, or the municipality until the formal application review. I've made a few different suggestions from a construction standpoint to still allow for this renovation to occur. I could use 3 of the 4 foundation walls and continue on my planned build. If this was permitted, I could actually rectify the 16-inch difference and build to the approved setback. The design plan for my renovation would still leave ample spot on my east setback, as there's a sunroom I am not using. I could also perform a bank pour using the 6.08 west wall, where I could cut back the current wall and bury it below ground. This could also be done in a monolithic pour. I have made all of these suggestions to the building official, but have been told that they do not see it as a renovation if 3 of the 4 foundation walls are not being used. They've also stated that the 4th wall must stay, even though the 16 inches was a clerical error from my previous zoning bylaw amendment. They told me that I must get an additional zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance. I have researched this, and it is not stated anywhere in the Saugeen building regulations or the Ontario building code that all 4 walls are required for a renovation. I don't think it's fair that one person has a right to draw a line in the sand, especially when single wall renovations are being permitted all over Ontario. I have several emails back and forth since last September where both departments noted that this would be approved prior to finding out about this setback issue. With the long lead times of material and the availability of trades, I had no choice but to pay deposits, align resources, and even start manufacturing some of the engineered trusses. I also have all my services set to be disconnected in just a few weeks. Not only will I lose several deposits, I will run the risk of not having trades available if I'm not able to start this project this month. My ask of council is to either allow me to shift this build 16 inches and use 3 of the 4 current foundation walls, which again will actually bring me into compliance of the 6.08, or allow me to build the new dwelling renovation at 6.08 meter setback. I would even be willing to pay a minor variance fee, but just can't afford the 3 to 4 month wait of the approval process that it will take to go through, especially with the threat of tariffs, and my price will change. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you, and please let me know if there's any questions I can help to clarify at this time.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Hennessy. And just before I turn it over to members of council, for any questions or comments they may have, I just want to note, and you've kind of noted it in your presentation, that we do have a process for addressing things like this through the Committee of Adjustment. And that really is the appropriate venue to have an issue like this addressed. Council can't make the change that you're requesting from where we sit. The Committee of Adjustment really is the body that can do that. So I certainly encourage you to engage with the committee. I know you've been in discussion with staff and have even perhaps submitted an application, or at least at the stage, just right at the stage of submitting an application. And I'd certainly encourage you to go through that process, because that really is the venue, the appropriate venue to deal with this. And I'm hopeful that at that venue, it could be dealt with expeditiously. But anyway, For the purposes of tonight, we will refer this matter to the Committee of Adjustment. But all of that said, are there questions or comments from members at this point? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's the right approach. As I am on the Committee of Adjustment, as you know, and that is where this application should be reviewed. Ryan, I'm just wondering, our meeting's next Monday or next Tuesday, which is too soon. I don't think we'll be able to get it on the agenda by then. I don't think. But if this is moved to April, for the Committee of Adjustment, for them to make a decision, is that the timing, the third Monday in April, going to pose any issues?
I would likely lose a couple trades, as well as the services will be cut off to the dwelling, so it will sit vacant.
Okay.
But
'Cause I-
it'd definitely be better than
Yeah.
4 months later.
Because I think that agenda is probably set for next Monday night already, and it'd be too. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but,
like when
but
I spoke with the county, sorry to interrupt, when I spoke with the county, I actually had a meeting with them last Friday. They've been great. Unfortunately, they said that by the time they got
Yeah.
everything ready, it would likely be like 90 to 120 days before I could get in front of someone.
90 to 120 days.
That's what I was quoted over there.
Okay, well, we'll let it go through the process anyways and see where it lands. So
Understood.
hopefully it'd be sooner than later for you.
Here's hoping.
Further questions or comments from members at this stage? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thanks, Ryan, for the presentation. Just for my understanding, if the clerical error, as you put it, had not been made, would this be an issue right now?
I can't speak for if it would have been approved, but the normal setback would be 7.5 meters, so I would find it hard to think that they wouldn't have approved the difference of 16 inches.
All right, so you did receive a variance for that, the difference between 6.5 and 6.15.
7.5 to 6.5,
Oh,
where in
yeah.
fact, it's actually 6.08.
Okay,
Yes, I did receive the variance when I built the dwelling that I live in on the
Right.
other half of the property.
right, and so you're really looking for another variance for the same thing?
Yeah, that's hence why I'm here. I was hoping that maybe speaking to a broader audience, I could make my point that it was a clerical error, and I can either rectify to put it to 6.08 using 3 of the 4 walls, and or just build to the current dwelling standard that's been there since the 1800s.
Right, and you're not gonna live in this building, you're just doing it purely for rental purposes?
That's correct, sir, yeah.
All right,
I
Oh.
do live on the same property where I have no intention of leaving, but this will be for a rental.
right. Well, I'm hopeful that there's some expedited way that this can be taken care of, but I'll leave it to the Committee of Adjustment. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, and through you, I also sit on the Committee of Adjustment. I'm concerned about the response 90 to 120 days. That's September, potentially. When you look at how it all flows through, is there anything we can do to, Tuesday, the next meeting is too soon, but is there anything we can do to encourage a little more speediness on this one?
So I have already spoken to county staff about this file earlier today, and they assured me that it can be dealt with expeditiously. I think the one thing that council can do is state our strong desire for it to be dealt with expeditiously, which I think is probably agreed by all members. So I think, as I say, there's a process. Staff are going to work through that process, but I think our desire is to see it move as quickly as we can, and we'll keep advocating to have it move as quickly as it can.
Appreciate it. I have preemptively filled out my application, just if it did go that way, and can assure you I'll be there first thing tomorrow to pay the fee.
Thank you. Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I too am a little taken aback by 90 to 120 days before a decision comes in. We're living in a different world, and things are changing so quickly that it could be the difference between I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it because I can't afford it. And we say, and I guess it's going to the county, is that where it goes? Just clear up, or a Committee of Adjustment here. So why can't we bend a bit, and that could show up at the next meeting next week, rather than saying it's too late for that item.
Yeah, I think staff is hearing your comments. And like, I can't commit you to a timeline sitting here, and I don't think probably any member of staff can. But I think what I can say is staff's here, they're hearing your comments, and obviously council's eager to see it advance quickly. And I think for the time being, that's what we can offer.
I appreciate
Could I
that.
through,
Look,
Sorry,
Councilor
just if I could add to his comment.
Well, just Councilor Dubinsky's got the floor.
could I through you, I know our clerk had her hand up.
No, I didn't see.
Can she add to this?
Is there a comment from staff? Apologies, I didn't notice the clerk.
My turn. Thank you through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So there is a planning act process that must be followed, right? And there is a notification period that must be followed. So within that process, certainly staff have heard that it is council's desire for this to get through the process as expeditiously as possible. However, the act must be followed. So within that, so that will be relayed to the county. But certainly to have it on the next agenda being the 17th, that's an insufficient notification period. So that would not be permitted.
Okay, thank you. And I wish you well. I know I'm familiar with the property and I know what you want to do. And I hope we can help Mr. Hennessy here. Because as I say, the world is changing. We're talking rental units in the core area. They're like gold. So I hope we can go as quickly as we can go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just threw you to Ryan. Rand, I think you've heard from council. We're going to do whatever we can to speed up the process.
Appreciate
Okay?
it. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. We appreciate your time tonight, Mr. Hennessy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to item 9, reports of municipal officers and committees. And the first one is 9.1, a report on the Bruce Street acquisition, and we'll turn that over to the manager of engineering services.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Today I am here to present the request for the land acquisition for Bruce Street from
Yes, Earl, make sure you're talking into that mic the whole time, just so folks can hear you.
Bruce Street from Pier 25 to Sunset Boulevard. Thank you. Thank you. The Bruce Street is a collector road, and its connection from Bruce Street Bruce Road 25 to concession 10 is outlined in our official plan. This report recommends the acquisition of the land between Bruce Road 25 and Sunset Boulevard. And we also have the bylaw and the agreement are attached with this report.
Okay, thank you. So there is a resolution. The council adopt bylaw 24-2025, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited and Brand Johan Kesselbrink for the acquisition of Bruce Street. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Stack and Vice Deputy Mayor, questions or comments? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Royal, thank you for your report. I had a number of questions about this from some members of the public, and you know, some people said, "Oh, how come we're building a road for the contractors?" But it's my understanding that it's the town's responsibility to build the correct collector roads. Is that correct?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So, and as well, in this case, development is paying for development because the road will be built with the process of development charges. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. And it's already approved in our 10-year plan for 27-28. We already identified DC or development charge will be the funding source for this project. So it is actually paying from the development, not from the taxpayers.
Right, so development is paying for development, and then, so what happens then, sir, if I could ask, when someone wants to bring a side street into it and develop houses on that?
Thank you again, and to you, Mr. Mayor, excellent question. Actually, we'll be only installing the main, water main, sewer main, and we'll be also applying for the connection to our property line. And then if any developer in future, they want to hook up with our system, they will be responsible for that. And if that cause any damage to the road, they will fix that as well.
Okay, so we're not building a free road for someone,
No.
okay? And last of all, if I may, through you, Mayor, this is good news because this will open up the road past the lands that are owned by the town, the 8 acres that are owned by the town on Bruce Street, which could bring us all sorts of exciting options for more diverse types of housing, correct?
Correct. And thank you again, through you, Mr. Mayor, if we receive the grant, because this is also actually related to a grant application
Right,
that we'll be applying in future, yeah.
right.
In the
And
future.
just one last thing, Mayor, if I could, how much was the grant that we received?
No, we will be applying.
Oh, okay.
Once the asset ownership is a prerequisite to apply for the grant. So this is a grant called Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, or SIP, which is from a federal grant. And the application deadline is March 31st. So we need the ownership before we submit the application.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rural, thank you for your present. This is exciting, thinking about opening up, County Road 25, with with Bruce Street running north-south. So that's the first, and then it'll be just that piece to the north for the 10th concession, and we've got our second route through town in addition to Highway 21, so it's great news. If we are successful with that grant in March, April, what is the soonest earliest date that you would see that section of road opened up? Would it be 2026, 2027? What's the timing?
So what we are planning actually, for the engineering design will be in 2026. And if we receive the grant or the results like in April, May, we'll be starting earlier. Maybe design will be 25, 26, and the construction will be 27, 28.
Right. Well, just great news. Good luck with the grant application.
Okay, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. So when we bring Bruce Street right out to County Road 25, that'll be as the Vice Deputy Mayor pointed out, a second route down to Bruce Road 25. Did we not just recently receive a grant to bring Ridge Street out to Bruce Road 25?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that was a different grant, and we actually already own the Ridge Street. And actually our intention was to apply for Bruce Street, and we found that we don't own the asset. So that's why actually we applied for Ridge Street and we got the grant. And that's a different grant. That's the provincial.
Okay, I understand it's a different grant, but we're gonna have basically 2 parallel roads,
Yes, that's correct.
whereas we currently we have no roads out there. There's no way that we could use the grant for Ridge Street and apply it to the Bruce Street, could we?
No, actually,
No.
no, whatever we submitted the application for, we have to do that project.
Ah.
That grant.
Then we're gonna have 3 roads. It's gonna make the Bruce Street Collector Road kind of redundant with Ridge Street, Bruce Street. People are gonna have 3 choices to get into the south end of town.
Yes,
I suppose it's great for people that live in Gobles Grove. Yeah, I mean, it's great that we're gonna have access from the south without having to come to the intersection. I imagine for people that live down there or for people who are using Lake Range Road and 33 and 25 to get to their residences down there, it's gonna be a wonderful thing. It just seems we're going from none to lots of access. Oh, well, too bad we can't reallocate the grant, but anyway, we're gonna have lots of roads, lots of paving north-south down there. Thanks.
Thank you. The deputy mayor.
Thank you and through you, and I appreciate what Councillor Matt just said because there was some confusion about these grants and they're two different pools of money and because I was asked, didn't we already get that money? I'm curious though, if the grant that you're speaking of that we're applying for, if it doesn't come through, how are we going to get the road built? That's $2.1 million. How does that show up, you know, in terms of the grant doesn't come through, does the road just not happen until we have another shot at a grant? Or, you know, is this going to be taxpayers that pay for this?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, again, as I said, we already included this section of the streets in our 10-year plan. So, and the funding source identified as the development charge, not through the public taxpayers' money. So that's already been identified. So if we get this grant, it will be kind of in addition to the funding sources.
It's always worrisome when a lawyer walks up behind you. Can I just for clarification, the report though says the funding for, and I'm assuming it meant to build the road, it includes the potential for $2.1 million of grant funding. If that grant funding doesn't come through, you're saying that the funding would come from the DC reserves? It's not going to be added to the levy according to the business plan?
Yes.
Thank you.
And if approved by the council.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? The trouble has passed by. Just a comment from me. I think this is a great thing. I think these east-west access, the north-south accesses, opening them up is a positive thing. As Councillor Helpman pointed out, the primary reason why it's enabling us to build housing in the south end of Port Elgin, which is something that we need to do. These are long planned roads, both Ridge Street and Bruce Street, extensions out to the 10th concession. These aren't projects that are being driven because there's funding. They're projects that we had funded that through our regular business plan that now we have grant funding to offset those expenses. So, I mean, this is a really good news story because we're spending less DC money to do these projects so we can have that DC money to do other things. And it's all within our existing plans. So it's positive we can advance these things more quickly if we get that grant money. If we don't get the grant money, then this isn't scheduled in our capital plan until later in this decade, right? This Bruce Street. So if we receive the grant money, it enables us to accelerate the construction timelines on Bruce Street, which in other words, enables us to accelerate building houses on the south end of Port Elgin and having that diversity of housing that I know we all want. So it's a really positive story, long and short, and we appreciate your work on it. You have been very successful of late in between this and the one we're going to talk about later, the Goddard Street resurfacing. We have collected a fair bit of grant money, millions and millions of dollars of grant money to advance these road projects, which is good news for the taxpayers. So thanks for your work. So there was a resolution. It's been moved and seconded. I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. All right. So now we're on to 9.2, the landfill optimization environmental assessment, proposed terms of reference, and our project manager, Colin Saunders, is going to speak to that.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. This evening, we're going to present myself, Matt, and Andrea Nelson will be presenting as well, giving the final presentation, the final draft terms of reference that we've been working on for quite a few years now. We're ready for this to be approved by council this evening. Then the next day, we'll go on to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks for review. We're looking at upwards of 6 months for that. The time frame then when that's done, if this all is approved, Then we start on our final detailed environmental assessment. So the council approved landfill optimization environmental assessment proposed terms of reference is what we're looking for this evening. The last public meeting we had three options we were looking at, and one of them was third-party waste. We've since reviewed that. We've looked at it more, and that you'll see in our terms of reference, we've taken that out. We're looking at the base, which always has to be there, which is do nothing. That's always the base from an environmental assessment. And then landfill optimization are the two that we're looking at to do here. Matt and Drea will get into a little bit more detail in their presentation. Theirs themselves will not be as detailed as our last one. This is more of an overview. It's a review of what we're going through, and just council can look at what the actual recommendation is. So I'll ask Matt and Drea to come up now. They can present, and then at the end, we'll have questions.
Thank you. I think we have a presentation that's going to come up on the screen. Thank you for the introduction, Colin. My name's Matt Nelson. I'm with GEI Consultants, formerly GM Blue Plan in Owen Sound. I'll try and keep this really short. We've seen the material before, so I'll just focus on some of the key points about the terms of reference portion of the EA process that we're doing for the existing Southampton landfill site. So as everyone's aware, the reason why we're going through this process is your landfill space is running out. So about 2030, 2032, your landfill could be full, and we would need to have an alternate solution for that. So that's driving this EA process. So what we're looking at is the optimization of your existing landfill site. As part of the terms of reference, we've established through consultation and with the review team, stakeholders in the local community, that the study period will be 40 years. The existing service area will be maintained as the town of Saugeen Shores. And the other key part of this is that we'll be looking for about 725,000 meters cubed of airspace. The overall sort of west portion of the site will be an area that will be reviewed for the potential placement of the waste. We've also looked at having the landfill designed with a liner and a leachate collection system as an environmental mitigation process. And then lastly, we would continue to look at diversion optimization throughout the process, and in particular, source separated organics or green waste composting. So the approval process that we're following is 2 steps. So as Colin introduced, this is the terms of reference or the work plan really that we move forward into the environmental assessment process. So we're at the very first step of finalizing the terms of reference. And we've had meetings, we've had public consultation. And then once that is submitted and upon approval, we would start the EA process. So as part of that consultation process and informing the terms of reference or the work plan, the primary concerns brought forward by the public and stakeholders were concerns about environmental impacts and financial implications, locations of potential alternative landfill locations. We heard that taking responsibility for the generation of your own waste was important to the community. Also, the consideration of additional diversion operations, or options, sorry, initiatives. And in our last meeting, we heard that the presence of the private airport or aerodrome northwest of the site was also a concern. And so since our last presentation with a lot more information about the TOR, there's been some minor adjustments, but there's two major changes to the terms of reference that I would draw your attention to. One is that we are including an impact analysis or a risk analysis with respect to the aerodrome to the north. So that's been added to our studies list on top of archaeology, hydrogeology, natural environment, all those other ones. And then as part of the alternatives too, so as part of our focused environmental assessment, we have removed the third-party waste disposal option from the EA process. So it won't be carried forward as a comparison. And when we talk about that focused environmental process, again, this terms of reference is being prepared as a focused EA. And what that essentially means is that instead of having a long list in a normal EA of alternatives to, we've done the work up front to eliminate several of those options that that didn't make sense to carry forward. And we've heard all about those. So the new landfill, the potential for a new landfill site, we would be eliminating from the EA process. The alternative waste management technologies such as incineration would be removed as part of the EA, and the third-party export of waste. So the EA would be moved forward with the focus on the landfill optimization at the current site. So next steps. So upon approval of council of our draft terms of reference, we would be submitting it to the Ministry of Environment, the review team. The 30 days is given to the review team to provide any comment, if any. The overall process usually takes about 6 months, but at that time, the minister would then make a decision of either approve the terms of reference as they are, approve the terms of reference with amendments or conditions, or to reject the terms of reference. And with that.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a recommendation. It's that council approve the landfill optimization environmental assessment proposed terms of references. Or mover and seconder by the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Halpin, and discussion. The deputy mayor.
Thank you, and through you. The expression expansion and optimization is used sort of back and forth in here. I just want to clarify the expansion aspect is nothing outside the existing boundary of the Southampton landfill site, but the expansion could be additional activity within the site.
That's exactly correct. Yes. So the existing property is the waste placement would happen within the existing properties owned by the town of Saugeen Shores at the landfill site. So there's multiple parcels, so I'm trying to be clear, but yes, it would be the existing landfill properties. And there's no contemplation as part of that to add any property for waste placement. So the landfill footprint would be either directly sort of west or adjacent to the existing, or even attached to the existing landfill. And those design concepts would move forward as part of the EA process.
Thank you for that, because I had a question. Someone said expansion, are we buying more land? And I just, you know, the mayor and I just don't know if anybody else was on council. When we did expand the boundary, thinking very long term, and that was just a good decision that we made back in the day. And so just if there's confusion about expansion and optimization going forward, I think it's a good definition to get into documents so people understand expansion is on the existing site. It's not pushing the boundaries out. Thank you.
Okay, further comments, the Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. I was sitting on council back 10, 12 years ago when we talked about expanding the landfill site. I felt fairly comfortable we're going to get this done on time. And now it's 5 to 7 years. So it's a long process, expanding, adding to landfill site. And makes me a little bit nervous thinking that if this isn't approved by the ministry, you know, the thought of running out of space in 5 to 7 years and trying to ship our landfill products or waste over to Michigan may not be a possibility in light of the relationship with Canada and US right now. But it's good to see. My main, one of the concerns I have, and you talked about in your report about there may be a requirement for a bird study, and there's a tremendous number of seagulls, obviously, and no doubt other types of birds at the landfill site. But could this, you know, if that aerodome concerns me, and I see that now the discussions have started. Can you bring council up to date on, has it been 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings? How are those discussions going? And I guess my question is, if they don't go so well, could this project be kiboshed because of that?
I'll answer those questions in sequence. So in terms of the meetings, we've been in regular, as part of this process, we have had several meetings with what they called the review team with the Ministry of Environment. And with respect to the potential for bird strikes or risk from the airport or aerodrome, we've started, it's at the very early stages of consultation with Transport Canada. With respect to our preliminary discussions, the feeling is that it's not a big red flag in terms of, and the assessment hasn't been done, but I haven't heard concerns that it's, you know, would be imminent threat to the project, but the work would have to be done. That being said, the work hasn't been done to show it, but I think given the distances and the information we have to date, that we haven't seen that kind of response yet.
Okay. And those comments are fairly soothing, because that would be a concern if, I mean, obviously if that discussion doesn't go so well with Transport Canada, that would be very, very concerning. Is that aerodome, is that strip used for Southampton Hospital with helicopter emergency services, or is it strictly private?
No, there's the helipad is on the southwest corner of that property.
Is it?
Yeah, for the hospital.
So
Yeah.
it is used.
The orange. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, it's good to see that we're now at the phase of approving the terms of reference and recommendations. So, good work, Colin. I know it's been 5 years working on this project, and landfill site expansion addition. You know, I think I was told back 5 years ago it's a 10-year process. You know, so we're hopefully in the next few years we'll have this resolved. So thanks for your good work.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin, and then Davinsky.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just a questions around the bird strike and that. Like when we are working in a different part of the dump, we won't have more open space dumping than what we currently have right now. Is that correct? Like they try to maintain a minimal amount of open space before it is covered, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So expanding it or just moving that covered spot a little bit to the west or a little bit to the north should really not affect how many birds or anything that we'd necessarily have there.
That's correct, yeah. You're just moving us very incrementally. It's incrementally closer to the aerodrome, but
Yeah.
If you look on a plan view, it's in the same general area. And that's, I think, some of the information that's, to Councillor Myatt's
Sure.
point, is alleviating some of the concern, because it's not a new site. We have an operating existing site with lots of information and lots of experience.
Mhm.
So that provides a very high level of certainty, again, compared to opening a new site somewhere.
Correct. Thank you. And then one more question, Mayor, through you is, so, we're looking now like at a 30-day period, and then the government will have 6 months to review it, and then the actual environmental assessment goes. How long will that environmental assessment take from that point in your estimation?
Just gonna ask Andrea will be running the EA more, so I'm just
Okay.
asked her to come up.
Thank you.
So in terms of right now, there'll be a 30-day, once we provide the notice of submission to the ministry, which the government review team, Indigenous communities, and the public will be provided notice of that. Any comments from the public or the government or agencies will go straight to the ministry. So there'll be a 30-day period for that. We expect that the review and to get comment or approval with conditions from the ministry will take up to 6 months. After that, we will issue the notice of commencement for the EA. At that point, we will use that opportunity to distribute some of the documentation. So really, we'll get into that next public consultation phase of the EA. I'm seeing probably in the new year. And then we will be in a similar process as to what we've done for the terms of reference. So from there, I foresee another 1.5 to 2 years. But that can be contingent upon some of the studies, and maybe if, depending on what comments we get back from the government review team and what additional steps we may need to take at that point in time. So to answer that, probably 2028.
2028, wow.
So because next year we start in 2026, it'll take 1.5 to 2 years, I anticipate.
Okay, thank you. And what's the total cost of the study that we're doing to get us from when we started this terms of reference till we have government approval to start building?
The total cost of the process is significant. Colin, I would say in the range of, for the background studies, the process, in the range of what? $500,000 to.
We started that, Jim and I are going to be working on that of what we've gone to date.
Mhm.
And then we'll be trying to look at an estimate of what we're going to be looking at over the next couple of years. But it will be over, by the time we're done, it'll be over $1 million. I would suspect it will be, yeah. It's not a cheap process. It's a very long, onerous process, and it costs money. There's a lot of sub-consultants in the sense that we have to hire, we have to bring in species at risk and all that type of thing. It just takes time, unfortunately, but it does.
Thank you. And then that is the study cost, but that doesn't include the cost of start digging it out, putting in the clay, the collect and all the leachate, all the drainage, all that stuff. I think my take from this is that, are we charging enough for landfill? When you look at these expenses, it's kind of a rhetorical question at this point, but are we really charging enough for landfill? And should we really be making it punitive for people to bring in? My big thing going out there, being in the construction business, was just mixed loads of garbage that people didn't want to, they didn't want to take the time to sort it. So it's got wood and garbage and plastic and everything mixed together, where had it been segregated, it would have been, a lot less waste. So I think for me, looking forward, I'm very much in favor of making mixed loads of garbage very punitive for people, and looking at other ways of diversion. We have a nice well-run landfill out there, And there is lots of opportunity for diversion with everything that we have. I think we're doing a really good job on that type of diversion. It's just getting people to take the time to sort their stuff. And, okay, go ahead.
Through you,
Colin?
Worship. I'll just answer to a bit of that. We started that, and part of our problem, what we noted, I'm going to say 2000, maybe 2021, 2019, when we had some real construction booms going on, we really noticed the landfill filling up. We had one year that really concerned us. If we kept that trend, we were really going to have to look at things. So we did at that time double the price for unsorted, and then we raised it again. We raised it, even talked to the builders. This is what we're going to put it at, and they said, yeah, that's high. That's very high. It's too high for us, but it's still cheaper to pay that than have someone sort it. And that's the problem we get into. And this is part of what it is. We have so much construction here, and construction waste doesn't compress as well. And there's a lot of it in there. So there's not much we can do on that. We're working at it. The other things we can work on is, say, source separated organics. And, you know, we started the film plastic. We started all these other programs as far as diversion. And that is what we have to keep moving in that direction. It's very important that we continue to move that. So we have our, when we have the new, the optimization done, if that's all approved on, we now have more recycling and more diversion techniques in place. It's a kind of a, what do you call it, a symbiotic relationship, getting everything going.
Thank you, Colin. And I just, a last comment and a shout out to Councillor Grace's food cyclers. I'm an avid recycler. You know, when there's not like 4 feet of snow between me and my recycling or composter, and I've used the food cycler this year. And in 4 weeks, I have not filled up a full bag of garbage yet with recycling in my food cycler. So that organic, you know, people have the idea that, oh, well, you need organics in there to help it all decompose and everything, but we don't really need organics in there, and we should keep them out. Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you, Councillor Davinsky, and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of numbers here concern me. We're saying this could take a year, through you, Mr. Mayor, this could take a year and a half and so on. And yet we said, you said that the landfill could be topped up full in 5 to 7 years, 2030 to 2032. So I'm asking, are we running out of time here? Can you get everything done that you have to get done? And this may be through to Colin as well, so that we don't run out of space by 2030 or 2032.
We are getting low on time. I think all these efforts that in particular are occurring at the landfill are helping with that timeline. Usually we see as we get closer to the end, a lot of landfills will find more space in terms of just those corners that they haven't filled up, and there's just that little bit of drive at the end. And once our surveying, with all the surveying and differential settlement, we usually can scrape some extra years out of the landfill at the end. But yeah, I see Matt, sorry.
The Director of Operations.
We do operate the landfill well. We get good diversion ratios. A couple of points to make that touch upon this particular project that are other aspects of the business plan. So firstly, with respect to existing compaction, we did get a new compactor, which is heavier, where the reports from the operators are it does work better. So we might get even better compaction out of the landfill, but we won't know that until we get some surveys and for subsequent years. Additionally, in the 10-year business plan, we did include in 2028 a waste management master plan, which will touch upon how the disposal of the waste relates to the other ways of dealing with waste, including, or the other aspects of waste, including how it's paid for, And the source separated organic study will inform that particular study as well. So those are the other moving parts that relate to this particular EA. And I just thought I'd mention those points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So referring to Councillor Halpin's remark, it's up to us to make sure it doesn't fill up quickly. The landfill, we as people in this town have to do more than we're doing now. And the composter is a good start. We also have one. And blue box, I'm obsessed with blue box stuff. And then the garbage. And we've got to, people seem to think they have to put out garbage every week. And if you look at some of the bags, they don't. They could hold on to it for 2 weeks, maybe even 3. Anyway, that's, I'll get off my soapbox on that one. Let me ask one more question here. On page 3, I think it is, the project description, it says study period will be 40 years. Could you explain what that is, considering we're talking about being topped up at the landfill in 5 to 7?
So under the EA process, you're required to define the length of period of time that you'll need to provide that service, if you will. So the actual standard typically for projects is a maximum of 25 years, but we've worked very persistently with the Ministry of Environment because of the limited waste volumes that you have to maximize that period. So the period that we've ended up with through all these consultations is 40 years. So that's the planning horizon for how much waste. So if you remember how much volume we talked about, that's 725,000 meters cubed. That's over 40 years, the anticipated waste generation.
Thank you. And one more time, Mr. Mayor, the town has done its job. We have this ready to go. And I'll say it again. It's up to us, every single one of us in this Saugeen Shores, to make sure that we make it as successful as it can be. And our landfill will be there for many more years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. The deputy, well, I'll go to Councillor Mayat first since he hasn't spoken, and then back to others who have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. My first question, I guess, is about the lining that you're going to have in the leachate collection facility. Is the current site equipped with that same thing?
No, so the current landfill is what's referred to as natural attenuation. So currently there's no liner or leachate collection. So any water that seeps through the garbage can infiltrate into the ground. And that's what they mean by natural attenuation. So the leachate will seep into the ground and then get attenuated. So through microbial processes, geochemistry, and dilution will dilute as it moves through the ground.
Okay, and remind me of the topography of the area. Any water flow would tend to go towards the north where the river is that correct?
And west, yeah.
North and west, yeah, right. Yeah, so in fact, the new section, when this gets approved in hopefully 3 to 5 years, it'll be actually better for containing.
Yeah, considerably.
Considerably better,
So the waste gets placed on a it can be clay or an actual design geotextile, so like a membrane, a tarp, if you will.
Well, yeah.
And then there's pipes and collection trenches, so water that accumulates beneath the garbage will get collected through a pipe system and then shipped to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
So it's not
infinitely better.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been through some renovations at my house, and I've been to the landfill site a few times, and certainly diverting as much as I can. And it occurs to me that when you take the wood out, and you take the metal out, and you take the plastics out and now the organics are gonna be separated. There's not a whole lot left, but, insulation and drywall and plastic sheets, which isn't gonna leach out. I mean, all of the, volatile organics have been hopefully separated, your oils and paints and things like that. So there's not a whole lot of stuff to leach out anyway, except for the rain going through and collecting up gypsum and that sort of thing, right? So, I agree with, what I've heard before here tonight from Councilor Davinsky and others that, well, we need to do more about not bringing in the mixed loads and, us in Saugeen Township, we do ours with, I have little composters on 2 legs. My chickens, they get all my volatile or my organics. And we have a burn pit that the woods go into. So, I'm doing my best not to have to pay high tipping fees, but I appreciate that tipping fees are expensive too. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, in the general project description, there's also a line that reads, the existing service area limited to the town of Saugeen Shores will be maintained. I'm appreciative of your comments earlier about, basically kicking the third-party stuff to the curb, which came through loud and clear. I have concern though about this going forward. Do we have any reason to fear that this opportunity that we have, because we've heard that other landfills in the county are at capacity or very close to being at capacity, and they might not be as far along as we are. And of course, we all know that a very large community in the neighboring county rolls through our community fairly regularly with large loads of trash that are headed towards Michigan, and who knows what's going to happen with that. Should we have any concern that we may potentially be dealing with either, a movement to a county-wide system, or the province might just step in and say, landfill's ours now? So have you any inkling that there's any concern, at the municipal level, that this is a topic of consideration at other levels that could supersede our good work and just take it over? I'm asking you to crystal ball. Maybe that's a little unfair.
Yeah, I am a hydrogeologist, so you might not be asking the right person. In terms of my experience with the county waste committee, is that I don't know or I've heard of any county-wide initiatives, or I'm not clear on the political powers that they would even have to do that. So I haven't heard of those mandates or direction. Is all I could say.
As well. In the environmental compliance approvals for landfills, the service area is very clearly defined in that. So there would be a lot of levels of a lot of different. You have to navigate a lot of different things to actually make that happen. So I don't foresee that. A lot of landfills, there's a limitation on how much waste you can accept daily, et cetera. So I think that would be a very difficult path to navigate, but yeah.
Thank you for that answer. Are there further questions or comments? Just appreciate all the work that you folks have done to get us to this point. As was mentioned, I think, by the Vice Deputy Mayor, it's been 5 years now that we have been working on this, and it sounds like we're maybe 3 or 4 more years to go before we're at the point where we could have shovels in the ground on a new facility. So we do need to advance quickly, and as has been mentioned, continue with diversion as much as possible to get us through to that point where we can expand. I think it's just worth noting, and I think in the present context, as we're discussing at a national level and a provincial level about regulatory hurdles to getting things done and trying to resolve those hurdles, an environmental assessment process that takes longer than it took to figure out how to go to the moon is probably a problem, right? Probably a problem. Particularly when we live in a world where it may become increasingly difficult to move garbage over the international border. So these are things that we're going to need to look at. And it's interesting because if you went back 5 years from where we're sitting today, anybody who had been sitting at council at that time could have told you that the obvious thing to do is expand the landfill site where it sits, right? We went through a 5-year process, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to come up with an answer that anybody could have given you 5 years ago. And we scared a lot of people by poking around, deciding, asking whether we might move the thing for no reason, because nobody around this table would have approved a new site. I mean, we did a lot of things that were unnecessary and probably burned a lot of time unnecessarily, like the process wastes time and money. So that's nothing we can solve sitting here, but I think it's definitely one of those areas where improvements could be made. But you guys are doing good work and working your way, managing your way through the process, and staff as well. And we'll just keep plugging along until we resolve this issue. And I think the community can rest assured that we're not going to run out of landfill. So with that, you've heard the recommendation. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you all very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to 9.3, which is fund transfer to Goddard Street resurfacing and asphalt resurfacing. And the manager of engineering services is back with that report.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So this report is to request a fund transfer for two of our 2025 projects, which is one is the Godrej State resurfacing, and the second one is annual asphalt resurfacing. So for Godrej State, we actually received 2 bids. And the lowest bid actually over around 1 million from our approved budget. And the second project, asphalt resurfacing, which is concession 10 from the EC King access to the Tall Side Road up to the bend. So that's also, we have lowest bid that is over the, around 100K, the approved budget. So this report is to request for fund transfer from another projects, ongoing projects for Godrej Estates. Actually 2 projects. That's one from Eastwood Drive and the second one is from Mill Street. Total around $1 million. And the second request is for a fund transfer from engineering services for Coal Bridge to annual asphalt resurfacing to cover the additional needed amount.
Okay, thank you. So there is a resolution. The council approved $1.05 million in additional funding for the Goddard Street Highway 21 resurfacing project, funded by transfer from 320-86381 Eastwood Drive and 320-86384 Mill Street projects, and that council approved $107,000 in additional funding for the annual asphalt resurfacing project, funded by transfer from 320-86818 Engineering Services for the Coal Bridge Replacement Project. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Councillor Halpin. Councillor Stack. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Boy, everybody wants to speak to it. We'll start with the deputy mayor and we'll work our way around the deputy mayor.
Well, thank you, and through you, there's 2 different things here. So I'm going to focus first on the Goddard Street project. I did send in a request to Raul in advance with a question that I was going to ask. I'm extremely concerned that we have a connecting link that the province, through years and years of historical assistance, has funded 90% of connecting link projects, give or take a few percentage points out every now and again. But now, you know, adding in $1 million, that's definitely throwing the 90% connecting link, 10% municipality funding really out of whack. And I have some concerns about that. And I appreciate that you put information in here about the projects that the money can come from. And I'm going to just assume that because it's indicating contracted amounts, those tenders have already been processed and are for real, okay? I would appreciate, and I did ask this question in advance, what's the extra $1 million really all about? The report says that it was related to necessary upgrades to the stormwater and water infrastructure. Did we not know about that in advance? And I'm a big fan of aesthetic stuff, and I do like interlock brick, and I do like intersection treatments that create destinations. But to attribute, this cost overrun to interlock brick intersections, lifting bricks and either reusing them or new bricks, it just seems pretty extravagant. So perhaps, Rahul, can you just explain why the increase of 1.05 million? I could appreciate a slight increase given, you do things in advance. However, did we not know about the stormwater and water stuff that we were hoping to do? And what's the deal with the brick intersections? Like, what's the real cost of that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for question. And through you, Mr. Mayor. First, I will give you just a breakdowns of the cost increase. The significant cost increase is for water services on those 4 intersections that we need to fix, so that we are not going back again in future if we need to do any work on Godrej Street. So that's the one, and that's increased actually around 350K. And the second increase is to fix the existing storm system that's actually run from north of Walmart to the Bruce Road 25. We have a big size, and we did the CCTV inspection just before we tender it out, and we found that the condition is really poor. And that's the major storm infrastructure for that area that take water from all this road and from other assets to the BR Road 25. That's 750 millimeter die storm system. We have to replace that. During the application, actually, we provide always an estimated cost. And for your information, the connecting links, it does not cover any underground. They only pay for the road improvements, not for any underground and any other municipal services. So that's why the almost more than 700K for storm and water. And we also have storms, all those 4 intersections. Itself, to replace all these breaks, it is around 200K. It's not that significant amount. But the cost increase actually for underground services, which will be not covered from connecting links. The breaks, we had a couple of, I think one water break last fall. If you remember at Mill and Highway 21, our public works fix it, and when they try to repurpose or reuse the bricks, they found it's not usable. They became so brittle now, even it's very porous and brittle. When they just lift all the bricks in the damaged or the break area, it broke. They broke actually, and they could not put it back. That's why if you drive there, you notice they fix it with asphalt actually on Mill and Highway 21. So that's the reason that we have to replace all the bricks with new bricks. So that's actually total cost increased for water services and for storm. There is also a small increase for sanitary system, because we have to replace some of the covers, manholes for manholes we have to fix that really in a very poor condition. I think that's near to at the north end, Pearson area. We have one manhole very, very poor shape that we need to refix. So these water services, storm and interlock breaks, that's actually made this increase around $1 million.
Thank you for the thoroughness of your response. I understand, and appreciate the response. I'm still concerned that, we just went through a budget process and, if we knew that, there was stuff under the ground that wasn't going to be covered and, it's just out of sync with the process. So I'm understanding what you're saying. And also, I just want to comment that as a member of the board of the Port Elgin BIA, the messaging that's gone out to the BIA was there wasn't going to be digging. And it sounds like when you mentioned 4 intersections, I believe you're talking about Gustavus Green, Mill, and Elgin.
Yeah.
Not Market. So the 4 that are right in the core.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of how disruptive the digging will be? Like, will it be significant, or is it something that can be handled fairly easily without a great deal of time or just traffic disruptions downtown?
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, we are also receiving similar questions from different businesses and stakeholders. So once we award the contract, hopefully tomorrow or day after tomorrow, then we will have a meeting with the contractor and we will find out. We have a plan, but we have to get the confirmation from the contractor because they will come up with their plan, their traffic control plan and everything. So we'll try our best to get the disruption as minimum as we can. At the same time, the timing of the disruption, we'll be also considering that. And we already scheduled a meeting with the Port Elgin BIA on March 24th. So once we have all the parties on board, like consultant, with the town and contractor, and then we'll have a discussion with the businesses, and we will try to find out the best possible solution for. But when we do construction, we will have some disruption for sure, but we will try to minimize that as much as we can.
Okay, everybody else still have questions then? We'll go to the Vice Deputy Mayor next then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ruel. And the question I had, Ruel, the council did, staff asked of council to pre-approve. There were a couple of budget items asked for pre-budget approval back in December, I believe. One was Jubilee Park. And then I think this was one of the other projects. And I think the thought process there was that we'd get out of the chute quickly and try and come up with some competitive pricing that we may be getting better costing. Let's see, this one's $700 million over budget. And no doubt we're probably very surprised at that too. When the grant application was being written, Ruel, were you aware? I guess part of the increase in cost is the underground servicing north of Walmart to County Road 25. So what you're saying is when the grant application was written, the staff were not aware that there was some problems underground with that section of road. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, through you, Mr. Mayor, when we apply, we apply with, like, there are different estimate class, like class B, class A, class B, class C, class D. So we apply with class D, which is kind of conceptual estimate for the grant applications. And sometimes it varies. It may increase or maybe decrease during the actual survey and the construction when you get the bids.
Right.
In regards to the competitiveness, we received only 2 bids for this project for Godrej Street. And if you have a look, the difference is more than $2 million. Like the lowest bidder is 4.2 million. Maybe I have to just have a look.
6.3.
Yeah, and that's 6.5. It's more than 2 million difference.
Right.
So I think we received a very good price.
Okay.
And the contractor is a local contractor. They have their asphalt plant at Owen Sound, and we already know they're very familiar with this area.
So thanks for that, Ruel, Mr. Mayor. Just one more. So Ruel, in your report, you say that it is important to note that the asphalt cement index typically increases during the summer months, which could lead to higher overall project costs. What you're saying is that if we had have waited to March, April, May, June to tender out this work, that the costs we're seeing here, the 4.2 million, could actually have been a lot higher? Is that what you're saying with making that statement?
Thank you again for this question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if we tender it out, like if we just don't approve and tender it in a future,
Right.
then it will be increased more,
So,
for sure.
so by granting pre-budget approval back in December, even though we're still $1 million over budget, it still did make good sense in terms of by trying to tender out a project in April, May, June, that cost could have been significantly higher. So that brings a little bit of solace. I mean, I think that's, so there's probably some good to the fact that we did grant pre-budget approval for this and another project, because I supported that, because I think that getting out of the chute quickly and, you know, if contractors are having a very busy year, costs tend to go up. So, I hope that, you know, it balances out, I suppose. If we had to wait, it could have been significantly higher. So I stand by my vote, you know, for granting pre-budget approval. I think was a good move still. So thanks for your report.
The CAO wishes to speak to it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify some of the language, and Rural can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that I wouldn't use the words that we're over budget on this. If you look at the council report on page 2, right underneath the table, it actually notes that the lowest tender submitted by EC King Contracting is approximately 700,000 below the final engineer's estimate. So what Rural is highlighting for council is that we did submit an application to the MTO for the Connecting Links funding. We were successful in receiving that 2.69 million. But in doing their due diligence and looking at the road reconstruction, Rural has highlighted that we need to take a look at the water, sewer, and storm sewer services at the same time. Just to be prudent, it wouldn't make sense to rebuild a road without looking at those materials underground. And as Rural highlighted, those costs are borne by the town and wouldn't have been borne by Connecting Links. So even though we made the Connecting Links application, and I do want to give a shout out to Rural because he has been working very hard on these grant applications and been very successful. So while we did acquire that almost $2.7 million, there is that underground work that needs to be done that's prudent to do right now. And that's what the $1 million is the request for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Halpin next.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Some of this resurfacing though, I mean, you know what, there's never a good time to dig up a main street. Like, I mean, that's just kind of a fact of the matter. You know, you'll never get a good consensus of when a good time to dig it up is. However, a lot of this work that's going to be happening, the resurfacing, when you're resurfacing a 4-lane road, they don't block off all 4 lanes. They'll usually resurface 2 at a time and allow 2 lanes to be going back and forth while they're doing resurfacing. Like we're not gonna have our whole main street shut down while they're resurfacing. It'll be a moving project.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor again. This will be mill and overlay, which is really very fast.
Mhm.
And yes, you're right, there will be always, each way traffic will be open, at least 1 lane on each way. But the fixing the intersection will take some time. So that's what we need to discuss with the contractor, how to manage that timing and also the expectation from businesses. We received some emails from businesses that they don't prefer for intersection work during July and August. So that's, we need to coordinate with the contractor, but for the resurfacing work, maybe it will take maybe 4 to 6 weeks, but the intersection may take some time because we have to dig for water services. We have to remove all the bricks and replace. That may take, like one intersection may take 1 week. So that's we need to actually coordinate with the contractor and also like with the businesses, how to manage the intersection improvement thing.
Thank you. So all our businesses are going to get filled in and have a good report on March 24th. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for your work on this.
Counselor Stack?
Thanks. I think most of the comments have been said, but just on, I guess, so on the issue of the intersections, for what it's worth, if we can at least not have the work on Fridays when the traffic really ramps up, because I think that's when the most of our cottagers come in and the tourists. The other comment I would just make is, and it's probably something for the police services board perhaps, but the consequence of this is the other side roads are going to be more clogged, and the speeding sort of on Waterloo Street and on Bricker Street, particularly in the summer, is really problematic. And my concern now is we're going to have even more cars. So I guess maybe just as a piece of feedback, as we go through managing the traffic, we're going to have to talk with the police to have, my request would be to have more police presence on those side roads, because I think particularly in Bricker, which we have no stop signs, so the speed is pretty unrelenting. I think we're going to need to manage that. Otherwise, there's going to be a safety concern as a result. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the suggestions. Yeah.
Thank you. Counselor Dubinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Rahul. Thank you for your report, Rahul. Did you mention earlier how much it will cost for the bricks and the work to get the bricks laid and what have you on the various intersections in downtown Port Elgin?
Yeah, for 4 intersection, it will be around 200K only for bricks and the installing the new bricks. Yeah.
Okay, so $200,000?
Yeah.
And that's not very much, but I'll be the bad guy here. I think the brick intersections have outlived their usefulness. They looked pretty at one time, but we've had problems with them. And one problem had nothing to do with the bricks, but in order to get the job done underground, it was a bit of a mess. Bricks do rise. They do cause a tripping hazard, or could potentially. And I think it's time that maybe we go past the interlocking brick intersections and bring it back to the paving. I would move that in such a way. I don't know how I would do that. I don't think I'm going to be successful, but I've had my say.
Okay, thank you. You want to,
I want to see if there's a seconder for that.
so you want to make a motion to change the scope of the project? Is it even possible at this stage to change the scope of the project, given the fact that we're at the stage we're at?
Again, thank you for this, and through you, Mr. Mayor. When we when I do any tender for any projects, there are some original items and there are some provisional items. So for this project, the replacement of bricks, interlocks bricks is original items. It's not a provisional that we can change it.
Yeah, so council can't change it at this stage. It's been tendered and the tender's been, was about to be awarded. I guess at this stage, because of the stage process, point of the process we're at, we can't remove it.
Okay, thank you for that. And just a bit of housekeeping, the 2 contractors we have, EC King and D-Rock, I believe it is. Can we, I'm sorry?
Walker, I think Walker.
Oh, yes. Could we have in the future where these companies are from and put it in the report?
The answer is yes, from the CAA.
Yes, you can. EC King actually wind sound based contractor, and they have their pits here. They also do operate from here.
Yeah.
And the worker also like very local contractor. They work in this area always.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Mayat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have 2 questions. First one is, some time ago when we were doing the work on, I think it was on County Road 25, we temporarily opened Ridge Street to traffic. In fact, the gravel's there. There's just a couple of Jersey barriers there now. would there be a possibility to alleviate traffic through a congested and perhaps at times completely closed Goderich Street to be able to open up that road during this construction period so that people coming in from, say, Bruce Power traffic coming into home, instead of having to navigate through all the construction, they could go left on 25 and across Ridge Street to access the whole area of Bruce and Ridge and all those new neighborhoods back in there and older neighborhoods too.
Thank you again. And actually, I got that recommendation from Mr. Mayor before already. So yes, that will be
Yes.
considered. Yes.
Okay, that's good, because I can see diversions both ways on concession 6 and County Road 25. There's going to be unfortunately increased traffic on all those roads. It's just a fact of life, I'm afraid. With the reallocation of the money from the Cold Bridge project, so that came in quite a bit under budget, didn't it? It came in and was estimated at 195,000 and it only cost 74,000 with a savings of 121. Now I've noticed, and I saw in the CAO's update that the work is commencing on the assessment for the Cold Bridge, and I've noticed a lot of activity there. When I get up in the morning and make my coffee and look out the window, I see the Cold Bridge, so it's on my mind all the time. This is, by transferring these funds over, can you assure me in no way going to delay the Cold Bridge replacement project? I know it's in the 10-year plan. I think it's at 2027. And this is going to keep that on track.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you noted, yeah.
Okay, the deputy mayor.
Council approved the budget for construction of Cold Bridge.
Okay. Duly noted, the deputy mayor.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor made mention of the asphalt cement index. Just reminded me, can you just explain what that is?
This, again, through you, Mr. Mayor, this is price index. Like it depends on the demand and supply. So usually in the summertime or the late spring, the asphalt demand increased and they also hike up the price because of the increased demand. So that's kind of price index for asphalt.
So an earlier tender process means they can lock in some prices, is that?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that if the paving, if they're planning to pave in August, they've got a locked in price from before.
Exactly, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Well, some good comments on that project. Obviously, one everybody's really interested in. And it's gonna be a good project. This extra money is gonna let us repair the infrastructure underground, which is really important to do. So I'm pleased to see we're doing that, and also pleased to see the extra money that we're gonna spend on doing that interlock. I think it's gonna be great to see that interlock with new brick, and it's gonna look just like it did in the 80s when it was first done. Right now, it's hard to tell. There's still maple leaves in those intersections, but you'll probably be able to tell after this work is done. So anyway, I think, yeah, it's more money than we were expecting to spend, but I think it will be money well spent. And also just to note, I've been speaking to staff about the communications. I know some of the concern around here has arisen from comments that are coming from the business community. Council and the municipality certainly appreciate the strain that a road reconstruction project can place on businesses when that's happening. I had it happen on Highway 21 in front of my own business a few years back, so I can personally appreciate how stressful that is. And I think I know the municipality is committed to good communications all the way through this project, and also good work on the ground to do some of the things that Councillor Stack and others have raised about making sure traffic is flowing well and making sure people are directed to the parking lots and making sure that, all the important work logistically is happening on the ground to ensure that the business community can continue to thrive in downtown Port Elgin while this construction is underway. So just that assurance as well. Anyway, you've heard the recommendation. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everybody. So now 9.4, and thank you, Rahul, is about the fire services dispatcher, and the fire chief has that report.
There's Kleenexes up here. When I'm sad, tears of joy. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the 5-year fire dispatch agreement with Owen Sound Emergency Communications ends on December 31st, 2025. Fire-specific dispatcher that is NFPA Communicator 1 and 2 compliant and Next-Gen 911 compliant was sought after to advance the progress that our fire department has made. This report recommends that St. Catharines Fire Dispatch Services be our dispatcher for the next 15 years. With that, I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief. The recommendation and resolution is that council approve entering into a 15-year fire service dispatch agreement with St. Catharines Dispatch Services. Is there a mover and seconder? The Deputy Mayor, Councilor Dubinsky, questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to our chief. Yeah, it's great work as usual. And anytime we see a report coming to council where we're going to save. I think you mentioned $500,000 over 15 years projected savings of, and that's significant. The question of 2025 budget, Chief, is I think there's a $27,000 in savings in 2025. Is that correct? When does it expire again? The agreement with Owen Sound. When does it expire?
It expires at the end of this year, December 31st, 2025.
So this would take effect January 1st, 2026. You're saying?
That is correct.
So no savings. So the $27,000 in savings is in the 2027 budget.
That is correct.
Okay.
It's in the 2026.
26,
budget.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
2026. It was good to see, as I see where the services will be supplied at no additional cost to the municipality for hardware, software, and initial integration. So again, great work, and $500,000 is a lot of money over 15 years. So
Respectfully, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a plan to spend it, so it's okay.
well, I kind of figured that. But I want to congratulate you anyways. It is a good amount of savings that allow us to do other things. So, thank you.
Don't pocket the money just yet. Councilor Dubinsky.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the fire chief. I know you visited several centers where you could get the possible service, and you went to St. Catharines as well. Who else are they servicing? Did they tell you who else is online or will be with us? They have 27 other municipalities. Niagara certainly is, most of the municipalities are in Niagara with them, but they also have numerous municipalities throughout Ontario. They just acquired and have switched over Hastings County and Prince Edward County. So they're all over Ontario. And continuing, we should make it clear to people that this particular service focuses only on fire emergencies, nothing else. Is that correct? That is correct. They are strictly a fire service only dispatcher. I look forward to the savings to see where you're going to spend it. And it's a great report. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Chief, how far afield can you go? Could we get a service in Winnipeg? Or could we get a service if they complied with the regulations in Mumbai? How far can you go to be effective?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Mayette. It's a good question. As long as they have the proper GPS software and we have redundant communication systems, you could be anywhere in the world and dispatch us. It's predicated on us supplying them with the proper information of what trucks respond to what areas for what type of calls. So as long as we do our homework, which we will, we could be dispatched from anywhere.
Okay. And so this is, the question was about, was this just for fire? So when I call, or when somebody calls 911, who answers initially? Is it St. Catharines or is it still going to be Owen Sound?
Through Bell, it's a Bell Canada 911. I'll call it initiative, but that's probably the wrong word. when you phone 911 from here, our PSAP or primary call taker for 911, it'll go to Owen Sound Police. They're the ones that'll receive that call. And then when you call 911 and they ask, is police, fire, or EMS? When you say fire, it automatically would go, and it would go to St. Catharines.
Okay, then there's another person answers the phone. Okay.
That is correct.
All right. Well, and the police, are they looking at, I actually don't know. We'll have to ask the police commissioner over here or commissioners. All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The deputy mayor?
Thank you, through you. So the fact that Owen Sound Dispatch will still be the, whatever the
PSAP.
PSAP, do they still charge us for that?
It's.
Or is it
It's all
provincially?
in your phone bill.
Okay.
911 fees are within your phone bill.
Do you know, your report mentions 5 of 8 municipalities in Bruce County have contracts that end, I think, at the end of this year. You know, certainly we can watch other councils to see what happens there, but are any of the rest of them already in the same position that you've been with presenting to us for a change perhaps to St. Catharines? You don't have to answer the question if you don't know.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the deputy mayor. I will be as vague as I possibly can because I really don't want to control the business of other municipalities or councils. The intent, well, it was received very well that other municipalities were in favor of St. Catharines. What happens out of that, I cannot say.
Well, and it has a direct response to Councillor Mayat's comment about police. The police service dispatch contract is up at the end of 2026. So certainly there's an awareness that if there's some change to dispatch customers, that could affect some of the other situations with current customers. So there's definitely an awareness of taking a good look at the contract and seeing what dates have to be hit to do some surveys. And I know you've been extremely helpful to the chief of police already, so I appreciate that. But certainly, you know, there is some concern if there's a big change with the customer base for Owen Sound Dispatch, that it could have some implications for other customers whose contracts are up, but police is to the end of 2026 right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions about this item? I don't see any. Thank you very much for this, chief. I think this is obviously a good cost savings and it sounds like it'll be a positive direction for the fire service in terms of the kind of dispatch service that we need. Do you have a comment you want to make?
Yeah, if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your worship. I just wanted to make sure that everyone's clear where I got the numbers from, and I didn't want to I wanted to make sure that I didn't burden the report with numbers. But the St. Catharines, I estimated 500,000 based on what our contract is this year versus multiplied by 15 years with no increase, no nothing, and compared that to what the total deal would be with St. Catharines. I also looked at St. Catharines deal because it's based on our per capita in 2020, or sorry, our population, census population in 2021, and our call volume over the last 5 years. So in the past, our dispatchers, the per capita charge would be every time there was a census, it would go up. So we have 3 census cycles. So I estimated the increase based on what other dispatchers would charge us based on census increase. St. Catharines is for 15 years with no census increase, no call volume increase other than what we're doing now. So that's where I came up with the total number, so you're aware. It's an estimate based on okay? Just so we're clear.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. As I said, I think it sounds like it will be a cost savings to us and also it'll serve the fire service well. And I just wanted to also note appreciation to the city of Owen Sound for the services they have provided us over the last many years. It's been a long-standing relationship. I think the town is going to head in a direction that serves us well, but I think just note our appreciation to the city of Owen Sound for providing us this service for so many years. So with that, you've heard the resolution. It's been moved and seconded. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you, Chief. Okay, so now we're on to the consent agenda. Only one item on the consent agenda, which is the communications. Anybody wish to speak to any of the communications? Councillor Halpin?
Thank you, Mayor. I just took note of the Toronto City Council and their buy local, buy Canadian. And, you know, we're all hearing that now with this Trump war, trade war. And I was wondering, rather than supporting that, I was going to turn this into a question. Has our staff considered a policy like that in our procurement? A buy Canadian thing. Thank you.
Yeah, the Director of Corporate Services will speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Toronto resolution was from a month ago. What I did last week was I took a look to see if there was any further developments across the municipalities. And in fact, the city of Vaughan last week on March the 4th passed a resolution. In their report, they noted that of their purchases, only 2% are actually with companies that have US mailing addresses, and we're probably not dissimilar. So most of our purchasing already is in Canada. But despite that, they still looked at making changes to their purchasing policy with the goal of being able to have a Buy Canadian campaign. In order to achieve that, the things that they looked at were they were taking a look at increasing the use of invitational procurement, meaning that places, and we have in our policy as well, where you can do an RFP by invitation. You select the vendors and they each submit their proposals. So that's one of the areas that they looked at. They also took a look at their thresholds that they have within their purchasing policy. And they bumped up a threshold from 100,000 to 133,000 to give to allow for more room where they're able to do those invitational procurements. Third thing that they put into their policy was addressing where they could be adding additional budget as a result of the tariffs, and then also a result of the purchasing policy itself, where perhaps buying Canadian may result in a higher price. And they had a mechanism in which to return to council requesting further increases. And then lastly, they also put in a provision to come back to council for further changes and perhaps further changes in the thresholds based on what Trump does in the future on tariffs. I'd like to make note that Canadian purchasing is not always possible or even clear what is truly Canadian. You can look at things like vehicles, software, fire equipment. There's lots of places where it's difficult to get pure Canadian purchasing. Another point to raise, and I think I did mention a little bit with the Vaughan, is that the tariffs themselves, regardless of what we do in our policy, council should be aware that the tariffs are going to have an impact on across the board, and that's going to have an impact on the things that we're buying, even if we make no changes to the policy. If we go and do make changes to the policy and push buying Canadian, that could then even further could increase that issue and make our prices increases even greater. Typically, you have not seen where we have come back to council asking for budget adjustments, but I just want everyone to be aware that 2025 may be an exception to that rule where you may be seeing that will be happening more frequently. With our purchasing policy, we have $25,000 that can be done by purchasing from price lists, by online direct sourcing to vendors. And there it's quite easy for staff to be tailoring to local, and that's typically where that purchasing would happen. Under 50,000, or in the case of construction, 100,000, we're able to use informal quotes per our policy. And again, that lends itself quite well to local purchasing. For purchases or buys under 100,000, or in the case of construction, 250,000, that's where we have formal calls for bid. And those that can also include invitation. So we're able to do that via invitation. And that then again lends itself to Canadian purchasing. Above that amount, then we're into truly open competitive purchasing, and there's limited ability to influence that to any great degree. I should note, as I was telling you, the limits in our policy, and I mentioned construction. Construction is typically Canadian purchasing just by the nature of the business. So changing the policy as it relates to construction is probably not going to change anything because it's already Canadian suppliers. Council could consider changing the limits of the non-construction up to the same dollar value of the construction limit. So similarly, Vaughan increased their limits. So that would be one way to further enhance the ability to give staff a little bit of leeway in trying to navigate to a higher degree of Canadian purchasing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think the thing to do, since we're talking about communications at this point, rather than debate the question or would be to direct you, staff, you've made some suggestions there to come back to council with a report laying out the things the steps that could be taken to support buying Canadian and those recommendations, make recommendations to council is what I'm trying to say with those specific changes that you would recommend. Council can debate them and then we can advance it in that way. So can you turn around a report for us in 2 weeks? I mean, you've already clearly done a lot of work on it, so it seems like you could come back to us in a couple of weeks with that. Yes? Okay, so that's good. So further comments on the correspondence then, Councillor Halpin.
Well, just thank you for being proactive at looking at these things. Okay, appreciate that. And maybe we should consider taking the American flag now from our arena.
Thank you. Councillor Davinsky.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me council way back when I was a reporter, discussed this before and I'll bring it up. Are we in a position, do we have where we can, if a local contractor, whatever, is $5,000 more than the lowest bid, can we still give it to the local person, even though it may be costing us $5,000 more? I don't know whether that's through you to Jim or could it be part of his report?
I think that's the way to do it. Councillor
Yeah.
Davinsky, your last point there. I mean, he can give us those answers. He'll come back to us with a report on procurement and then that question will be very much something we can discuss.
Okay, so I don't have to do anything now? You've got
Nope.
that down, right?
Jim
Okay,
has noted
I
your
just
question.
wondered whether I had to write it.
Yeah.
That's okay, thank you.
Very good. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Woodstock communication, I would, I don't think, I would endorse us supporting it right now, but I think it's a good one to refer over to the police because it is about distracted driving and speeding and all of that kind of stuff and reducing impaired driving. And in an initial conversation with the deputy chief over at the police station, this Vision Zero stuff and good roads, rural road strategy, there's some interest in what is this? And perhaps initiating a little bit of discussion, a tabletop, if you will, with a number of other players just to look at what these things are and see just what's possible. So I would ask that we just refer that one over to the Police Service Board.
So you want to make a motion to refer?
Sure.
It's a motion to refer the correspondence from the City of Woodstock to the Police Services Board. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mayette, all in favor? That has been referred. Further questions or
It's
comments?
just, by the way, if you didn't, the Good Roads, Rural Roads Safety Strategy, I hadn't ever looked at it before. There's some really interesting stuff in there. So
Yeah.
good little link. Click off if you're so inclined and have the time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Further comments or discussion on any of the items of correspondence? Seeing none, then thank you. We'll move on to close the public. And it's recommended that council move into closed public session to receive supporting legal opinions, discuss and provide direction on a confidential human resources matter that is subject to solicitor-client privilege relative to potential litigation and personal matters about identifiable individuals, and to receive advice subject to solicitor-client privilege on instructions to be applied to negotiations on behalf of the municipality relative to Shady Lane. So the resolution is that council move into a closed public session in accordance with Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392, B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal, local board employees. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Is there a mover and seconder? Councillor Stack and the Vice Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Council will now move into a closed public session. Okay, I have a resolution now that council arise from the closed public session and resume the regular council meeting. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Stack, second by the deputy mayor. All in favor? That is carried. And I will report that during the closed public session, council approved closed public minutes, discussed matters relative to litigation, receiving advice subject to solicitor-client privilege from the town solicitor regarding a confidential human resources matter relating to an identifiable individual. As well, council gave direction on a plan instruction to be applied to negotiations relative to Shady Lane. Oh, I'm sorry, and I'm wrong. I reported a moment ago that we approved the closed public minutes. We did not. Council deferred those minutes. Apologies. Okay. All right, so now we're moving on to bylaws. Sorry, let me just open my agenda again. It's easier for me to use the paper. Okay, yeah, we're on to bylaws now, and we have one bylaw to consider, bylaw 24, 2025, and there's a resolution that bylaw 24, 2025 is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 10th day of March, 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Halpin, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Then the confirmatory bylaw, the resolutions of bylaw 2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 10th day of March, 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Halpin and Davinsky, all in favor? Carried. And finally, the resolution that this regular council meeting of March 10th, 2025 hereby adjourns at 10:16 PM. Mover and seconder, the Vice Deputy Mayor and Councillor Stack, all in favor. Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.